Hey, what's good? I'm Kinell and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of classics and new releases from horror and exploitation cinema. Be sure to follow us up on the socials. That is Sinister_Cinema on your Twitter and Sinister.Cinema on your Insta. You can also follow my personal Twitter, that is @COLAK on your Twitter. That's where I do most of my posting. But yes, I'm back on my doing videos regular now. I've got a bit of a decent setup for doing it with. So I will say, if you could do us a favour, give us a bit of a like and a subscribe, all of them ones there, leave a comment, them kind of things, because it all helps. For, it's a tiny ass channel, but I'm going to be doing this on the regular. I'm doing it for the love, and it'd be good if you could sort of let people know what I'm doing here, if you fuck with it. But yeah, today I want to talk about a film that flew under my radar that I've just finished watching, called The Empty Man. Now, before I get too deep into this, I've got to give a shout out to the man who put me onto it. That's a big shout out to Robert Woods. Yes, he's an Australian director who directed The Fantastic and Ideal Host, which has been playing at some of the festivals. Check that out if you can. Hopefully that gets some kind of distribution soon so you can all check it, because it's a fantastic piece of work. But Robert Woods is as well as being a fantastic director, he is a true lover of cinema. He's based in Australia, so he can actually go to the cinema, which is one thing. But he watches everything. Like, I don't know how he finds time to do it and fucking maintain an income, but he does. He watches a lot of films, and he mentioned this film, The Empty Man, last night. Even though it's a ridiculously early hour in the morning, Rob always pops into the Zoom after parties for the Soho Shockdown Saturdays. Big up Mitch and that and all, should mention that. He gets up early and he always checks the films, and if he's got a recommendation, I check it out, because this is a guy who knows what he's talking about. And he mentioned The Empty Man. Now, The Empty Man, it's kind of flown under my radar, flown under a lot of other people's radar. And the reason for this, it kind of seems to be that it was made by 20th Century Fox, and they didn't really want to push it the way that they should. I think it tested very badly with audiences originally, but since it's been released, had a very limited cinema release to the very limited cinemas that were in October, and came out in VOD in January. And whilst it received a lot of negative reviews at the time, and some bad audience reaction, it's they're saying it's developing a bit of a cult following about now, which is pretty interesting for a film that's been out such a short space of time. So I figure I've got to check this out. I've got to get into it. As I say, it was filmed in 2017, but due to those initial bad reactions, 20th Century Fox just kind of lost interest in pushing it, and they kind of buried it in the schedules. And even the director, David Pryor, says that the version that was released theatrically is a rough edit. They essentially released an unfinished film, and editing is probably something that it could do with, because this film clocks in at a whopping 137 minutes. In fact, the cold open, all horror films have a cold open nowadays, and usually it involves something to do with the general mythos of the film, but some characters that don't even come back till later. It's 22 minutes. 22 minutes before we even get a title card in this, but that 22 minutes is a good 22 minutes. It sort of concerns a group of hikers in some foreign mountain range, and one of them sort of falls into a hole and appears to be possessed in some kind of way, and he's gone catatonic, he's not speaking, they're trying to deal with him and all this, and things escalate and stuff happens. And to be honest, the opening 20 minutes are good enough if they released just that as a short film, that would be a good short film, like. So even though it's a long time before you even get introduced to the characters that are actually involved in the film, it's good. It's worth checking. But anyway, the main guts of the story concerns a geezer who goes by the name of, I'm checking here, a former detective called James Lassombre. And he he works at a security store. He lost his wife and child in a car accident many years back. He's obviously haunted by that. And his neighbour's daughter Amanda goes missing, and he kind of starts looking into it, and he comes across some stuff. It turns out that Amanda and some of her friends had been involved with this sort of weird teenage campfire sort of game where you try and summon something called the Empty Man by blowing on a bottle and saying his name and all these kind of things. And if that setup sounds kind of familiar, then it's because there's been a lot of films with that kind of setup. I'm thinking like your Slender Mans, your Bye-Bye Mans and all that. And I think that's what a lot of people were expecting from the film. And that's why a lot of those films, to me, they're not particularly good, but maybe I think they're aimed at more of a teenage audience, and man has not been a teenager for a very long time. But if you're expecting just that to happen, they summon the thing and then some people get killed and then teenagers get killed off, that's not really what you're getting. There is an element of that, but it goes a lot further than that. There are some killings, some mysterious things, and it's less about, it's not really about the teenagers, it's more about this former detective and his search, his journey into finding out what happened, and on the way he stumbles across the involvement of a kind of cult, and that leads to escalations that involve like some kind of like it gets to the point of like cosmic horror. And yeah, that might be a bit much for people who are expecting a teenage flipping supernatural monster movie, but I fuck with it. I fuck with it heavily, and I am officially one of these people who are riding out for this film, because some people need to do that right now. But yeah, like what was this sounds like it's a very basic setup. So the actual craftsmanship of the filmmaking, I've got to look into this David Pryor guy a lot more, because there's some incredible shots and sequences in it. The sense of visual storytelling is brilliant, and it's based off a graphic novel by someone called Cullen Bunn and Vanessa R. Del Rey. And the thing is, with translating graphic novels, like, you know, obviously they don't have the same kind of limitations as cinema, because you can draw anything, and you can go a lot more internal with it, a lot more introspective with it. So I haven't read the graphic novel, but I will be checking it out, and I get the impression that there's a lot of dense source material to make a film from, and the issue with that is that if you're dealing with such dense visual source material, you might not be able to effectively represent it on screen, and you also might not be able to compress it to a reasonable feature running time. And I believe that they successfully did the first one, and maybe not so much the second one, but as we say, like, this film could have used some editing that the director wasn't permitted to do by the studios. But some of the sequences are incredible. There's one incredible shot that really just made me sit up in awe at the craftsmanship of it. It's sort of like it's representing as he's travelling across land, and it shows this map that he drops on a seat, and the camera zooms into it, and it sort of segues like seamlessly into an overhead drone shot of a road cutting through some trees, and the drone comes down closer towards the trees and then starts pulling up behind the car. It's an incredible shot. Like, it's one of the best shots I've ever seen of this nature. Like, that kind of thing's been done a lot of times before, but really this well. And one thing that particularly stood out to me is when the guy stumbles across the cult doing one of their weird ritual things. It's a sequence which has to do a lot. He has to stumble across it, like, if you think about like Kill List, where when they peek through the forest and they see, oh, there's some weird shit going on there, and then it sort of segues into showing what he thinks he's dealing with to what he's actually dealing with at a cosmic level. And it's an incredible sequence. There's a lot of really good filmmaking in it. In fact, I'm going to go on record and saying that it's probably an edit shy of being an absolute classic. But there's a lot of slow burning character development in the sort of first half of the main story, which can be difficult when you're dealing with a long running time, and you kind of want it to get there quicker. But the content certainly has its place. Like, if this was an extended cut of a shorter version, I think if there was a shorter version, the film would have played a lot better with audiences. And but if I got a Blu-ray with the full version on, I would consistently watch the 2 hour and 15 minute version every time. Like 1 hour and 37 minutes. It is a long shift, and I'm not one for putting long shifts into films unless they really grab me. And I'm glad I committed the time to watching this film. Normally when a studio tries to bury a horror film, it's normally because it sucks. And The Empty Man does not suck at all. It's an under the radar banger. And I believe if the studio would just let him finish his edit, then we'd be looking at a classic. But as it says, it does have kind of a cult following already, and which is incredible when you think that most people will have only really seen it from the VOD release, which is in January. We're talking like a couple of months ago it's developed this, and people need to be talking about it, and that's why I'm talking about it now. It might not be for everyone, but it was certainly for me. I will be purchasing this on Blu-ray. It's a bit of a shame that it's coming from a studio that is trying to bury it, so it's probably not going to be the nicest Blu-ray package, jam-packed with extras, not some kind of like prestige Arrow release, some Criterion business. They're probably just going to whack the film on with a trailer and maybe not even a commentary, but I still want to own this film. I've just watched it and I care a lot about it, so big up Robert Woods for recommending it, big up The Empty Man. Gutted for David Pryor for not getting to see the vision that he wanted, but a fantastic director that I will be watching for in the future. So yeah, that's The Empty Man. Be sure to check that out. It's on VOD now. All the usual places, YouTube, Prime, wherever you choose to do your VOD renting, you can cop it at them places. I rented it on Prime, I think it was like £4 or something, and well worth it. So yeah, that's The Empty Man. Be sure to follow us up on the socials. That is Sinister_Cinema on your Twitter and Sinister.Cinema on your Insta. Like, subscribe, comment, all of them ones there. I'm Kinell, safe.